Welcome back to Project L'Chaitei Sichos. Today we're covering Pirkei Avos, Chapter 4, title Varieties of Religious Enthusiasm. So this is about Pirkei Avos, Chapter 4 that we learned this past Shabbos. And we're going to see what the Rebbe has to say on this. So we start with minor and major mitzvahs. Quoting Pirkei Avos, Ben Azai says, run to perform a minor mitzvah and flee from sin. Ben Azai's teaching, including the words among the words of piety, comprising Tractate Avos, is not meant to tell us, as a rule, we should fulfill even a minor mitzvah and avoid sin. Obviously, every Jew should fulfill all the mitzvahs, even a minor one, and distance himself from transgression, God forbid, even a slight one. Rather, Ben Azai's teaching tells us how to fulfill mitzvahs, run to perform a minor mitzvah, and flee from sin. Not only should we actually fulfill the mitzvahs, but we should run to fulfill them, even a minor one. Not only should we refrain from actual sinning, but we should flee from it. However, we need to clarify this principle of running to perform a mitzvah is not only a matter of pious conduct, but a law explicit in the Shulchan Aruch. Quote, it is a mitzvah to run when going to a synagogue, and the same applies to any mitzvah activity. End quote. So what is the novelty of the teaching? Run to a minor mitzvah. That makes it a matter of piety, considering that it is a requirement of Jewish law. That performing a mitzvah is a requirement of Jewish law. We also need to clarify what Ben Azai does not include, quote, run to perform a minor mitzvah like a major one, end quote. Such a conclusion would appear to contextually appropriate, especially since in earlier Mishnah addresses the importance of being careful with mitzvahs. Be as careful with a minor mitzvah as with a major one. In fact, some versions of the Mishnah include also this point, as with the major one, but the Alter Rebbe in his Siddur does not support this version, and neither do most commentators. We must say that although when it comes to being meticulous with mitzvahs, a minor mitzvah must be treated exactly the same as a major mitzvah. When it comes to running to perform a mitzvah, a minor mitzvah is not considered the same as a major one. Therefore, Ben Azai says only to run to perform a minor mitzvah. We must run to perform even a minor mitzvah, and we learn that we should run with even the greater haste to major mitzvah. However, we still need to clarify why Ben Azai adds the qualification to a minor mitzvah at all. Seemingly, he could have simply said, run to perform a mitzvah, and nothing more, which would include every type of mitzvah. Then it would be implicitly understood that we should run to every mitzvah, commensurate with should and see, since one word in this way, there's no emphasis on being as careful with it. Quote, a minor one as with a major one. So, in that section, the Rebbes just says that Ben Azai, pious man, said that obviously we should run to fulfill mitzvahs, and the Rebbe goes on to clarify that obviously we're going to run to fulfill major mitzvahs, but then Ben Azai says we need to run the same way. Not exactly the same way, but we should run to fulfill all mitzvahs, regardless if it is small or big. Second part, the main reason is the reward. Regarding the reason for the teachings, run to perform a minor mitzvah and flee from sin, Ben Azai makes 2 points. A, one mitzvah leads to another mitzvah, and one sin leads to another sin. And B, the reward for a mitzvah is a mitzvah, and the reward for a sin is a sin. Simply understood, the difference between the two reasons is as follows. The first reason explains that a Jew must run to do even a minor mitzvah. This will bring the fulfillment of many more mitzvahs. The second reason explains that running to do a mitzvah must also be for the sake of this mitzvah itself, because the reward for a mitzvah is a mitzvah. As Bartanur explains, the reward and benefit that a person receives for doing a mitzvah, which is demonstrated by his running to do a mitzvah, are also a mitzvah. Alternatively, the reward for a mitzvah is the mitzvah, referring to the bond and the connection with Hashem achieved through performing a mitzvah. However, from this it turns out that the primary reason is the reward for a mitzvah is a mitzvah, indicating the running should be for the sake of this mitzvah itself, especially according to Bartanur's explanation, that the reward for a mitzvah is a mitzvah, means not the reward for the mitzvah he is running to do, but the running itself. The reason that a mitzvah leads to another mitzvah is supplementary relevant when explanation that a reward for a mitzvah is a mitzvah does not motivate someone to run to do a mitzvah. Under such circumstances, he may run to do it since the fulfillment of more mitzvahs is contingent on the fulfillment of this mitzvah. This motive for a mitzvah is a mitzvah can be considered a subtle form, at least, of doing this mitzvah, not for its own sake. If so, why does Ben Azai preface a reason a mitzvah leads to another mitzvah? To this reason, the reward for a mitzvah is a mitzvah. That was a lot of mitzvahs, but in just reading that out loud, that was probably just a headache. So let me clarify. The reason we should run to perform a mitzvah is because in the end, it'll lead us to do more mitzvahs. We'll get excited to do more mitzvahs, and the reward of that is connecting to Hashem. And if we go and do a sin, we're going to do another sin, and thus we're breaking our connection to Hashem, and that's not good. So there's multiple, and the Rebbes says that the reward isn't actually for fulfilling the small mitzvah. It's for the action of running, that you actually took your energy, you physically ran to fulfill that mitzvah. Part 3, 3 ways to run. There is another lesson found in Tractate Avos related to the role of running in one service of Hashem. Quote, Yehuda ben Tema says, You should and run like a deer to carry out the will of your Father in heaven. End quote. The Torah and also the Alter Rebbe in the second edition of the Shulchan Aruch present this lesson from Tractate Avos as the beginning of the overreaching of the fundamental lesson, the section Orach Chaim, indeed the entire Shulchan Aruch. It turns out that concerning a person's service to his creator, there are 3 types of methods of running. A, running that is obligatory to fulfill a mitzvah. A mitzvah. This is a law that applies primarily to running to synagogue, but it is later explained, and likewise for every mitzvah. B, running to carry out the will of your Father in heaven. This is not a law, but rather a matter of piety. You should run. Therefore, it is stated in Tractate Avos, however, is an essential matter of piety that applies to all individuals. This is the reason this teaching was incorporated into the Torah and to the Shulchan Aruch of the Alter Rebbe. C, the lesson of Ben Azai to run to a minor mitzvah. This is a matter of piety that is not the same for each individual, which is why it was stated only in Tractate Avos. The uniqueness of this running is emphasized by Ben Azai, adding, run to a minor mitzvah. So, simplification of the 3 points is that there's 3 different types of running. There's first running, which is mandatory for all Jews that run to perform, like, I guess you could say simple mitzvahs, running to shul. Like if you're late to shul, it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah for you to walk to, like per se on Shabbos. It's a mitzvah for you to walk to shul since you're not violating Shabbos. It's an extra mitzvah for you to run because obviously you're excited to go to shul. B, running to carry out the will of your Father is like what this whole sicha, this talk is about. Running to fulfill mitzvahs. It's not an obligation, but you should, because as for how we're obligated to run the shul, we're also excited to fulfill mitzvahs. And C, running to a minor mitzvah, which just shows that like even the smallest thing you're excited because it's going to connect you to Hashem. Part 4, running without ego. The overall eagerness of a Jew in fulfilling Hashem's will reflects the Jew's joy and desire to fulfill the will of his master and bring gratification to his maker. Eagerness exhibited in a manner of running indicates that the individual's joy and energy exceeds his limits and boundaries. Therefore, he overcomes his nature and alters his usual pace in order to perform this mitzvah faster. Such joy and vigor, which transcends one's usual nature to fulfill the will of Hashem, as demonstrated by running, is possible only for someone who possesses this exceptional bittul towards Hashem. Bittul is like you subdue your ego, like you're selfless. When a person is a somebody, and especially if he holds himself proud, giving himself honor and acts haughtily, he may still perform a mitzvah enthusiastically and joyfully. This joy, however, is dictated by reason and thus is a limited joy. He does not run, he doesn't lose self-control. But when an individual possesses bittul, he is capable of stirring within himself boundless joy, which is manifested in his running to do a mitzvah. So much so that joy may be expressed in a way that may make a person appear to be lowering himself and thinking lightly of himself. Regarding King David, we find that he leapt and danced with all his strength before Hashem. To explain his behavior, King David said, I will hold myself even more lightly esteemed than this and be humbled in my own eyes. So what does this mean? Like I said, that a Jew in his nature is eager perform a mitzvah to connect to Hashem. So with this, running to fulfill a mitzvah just shows this, but we're only able to do this if, like, we all have our different levels. Obviously, we're not on the same level, but we should all strive to do our best and show, like, be excited to connect to Hashem and not let your ego overcome you. Part 5, different verses. This sheds light on a questionable point in the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch concerning the law. Shulchan Aruch is the book of Jewish law, like halacha. And there was original one written, and the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad rabbi, the Alter Rebbe, he based his own off of that. Like, it's the same laws, just that he tended to be stricter in some things, which is where the laws that Chabadniks or Lubavitchers follow. It is a mitzvah to run a synagogue, and likewise to any mitzvah activity. The Alter Rebbe cites the source of this law. As it says, let us run to know Hashem. Although the Alter Rebbe typically elucidates the rationale behind laws, he does not, as a rule, provide their source. Indeed, with most laws, the Alter Rebbe omits their scriptural sources. Even instances that the Torah does cite them. What is different about the law? There is a mitzvah to run that the Alter Rebbe does cite a scriptural source. What is more perplexing is that even the Torah doesn't cite the proof text for this law. What also needs a clarification from wording in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. It is a mitzvah to run the synagogue, and likewise to any mitzvah activity. As it says, let us run to know Hashem. It turns out that from this verse we derive a law that it is a mitzvah to run both the synagogue and also to any mitzvah activity. This is perplexing because the Gemara cites this verse only concerning the importance of running the synagogue. However, as far as running to other mitzvah matters of halacha is concerned, the Gemara cites a different verse. And the verse that they cite, they shall follow Hashem, he will roar like a lion. So part 5 is essentially commenting on so we're talking about the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch because the Alter Rebbe also made the Siddur, which is the Siddur that Chabad shuls use, and in there he put the Pirkei Avos. So with this is where we learn from every Shabbos between Pesach and Rosh Hashanah, and they're commenting why he didn't cite many things. Many other commentators they cite where they got it from in the Torah or wherever else it would be, but the Alter Rebbe didn't usually do that. But he and the Torah, which lost my train of thought. He cited this, and this is to say that it's something important, and as is cited the Gemara, that we should follow Hashem and run after to do what Hashem asks us to do. That was very complicated. I could have simplified that. Sorry. Part 6, 2 perspectives. The explanation is as follows. By citing the verse, let us run to know Hashem, the Alter Rebbe does not mean to cite the source of law, but actually the reason of law. The reason for the overall point of running in the service to Hashem, to synagogue or to any other mitzvah activity, is let us run to know Hashem. We can understand this is based on Tzemach Tzedek's explanation. The Tzemach Tzedek was the third Lubavitcher Rebbe. Explanation of the above verse, let us know and let us run to know Hashem. Why does the verse repeat the point of knowing twice? Let us know and to know. The Tzemach Tzedek explains that these two usages hint at knowledges, divine perspectives. As it says, Hashem is a God of knowledges, which is plural. Lower knowledge and higher knowledge. And avoida, which is service, performed in a way of let us run, and running derives specifically from the higher knowledge to know Hashem. From the lower perspective, the knowledge experienced in the lower world, the world is a reality in existence that is created and energized by the divine nothingness. On this level of divine consciousness, one's avodah is only carried out by walking in a walking manner, progressing gradually, step by step, from the higher knowledge perspective, from where it is clear what the true reality is above, and that the world and even the energy of existence is nothing and insignificant. Such a consciousness would affect one's avodah to reflect the dynamic alluded by the term "let us run," which connotes ratzo. This entails running and escaping from limitations and the boundaries of one's existence. I don't know why, but I'm like stuttering over myself, so let me clarify that. Hashem there's two levels of knowing Hashem, quote unquote, which is the low and the high. So with us running to know Hashem, we're on a higher level, and once we get to this level, we also get to know that everything in this world really means nothing, and the only thing that matters is connecting and our service to Hashem. So that's what it means by let us run to Hashem, and that way we'll leave the boundaries that we have in this world and truly connect to Hashem. And yeah. Part 7. Running is for everyone. Although avodah executed in a way that is analogous to running, let us run beyond limitation, comes to a person's bittul, and this avodah continues until he reaches bittul derived from the higher knowledge, to know Hashem. Shulchan Aruch, nevertheless, rules that everyone has the same mitzvah as they run the synagogue, and likewise to any mitzvah activity. So it says that it doesn't matter if you're the holiest rabbi out there or the simplest Jew, we all have the same obligation to run the shul. Even someone who has not attained the higher consciousness of Hashem and his joy and vitality when performing a mitzvah is limited and bounded is obligated nevertheless to literally run with his feet to any mitzvah activity. After all, every Jew is obligated to fulfill the tangible expression of avodah of running, i.e. to run, in fact to do a mitzvah, even someone who has not attained even the lower level of divine consciousness. Similarly, we see with many mitzvahs that the way the mitzvah is set out to be observed aligns with the inner meaning of a mitzvah, and everyone, even those who are not the level of relating to the inner mitzvah the inner meaning of the mitzvah, and possibly who are not even aware of the mitzvah's inner meaning, must still act specifically in that established manner. The mitzvah of Kiras Shema, which is the Shema, was established to follow the recitation of the Pesach de Zimra and the blessing of the Shema. Pesach de Zimra is verses of praise that we say leading up to the Shema. In order to develop the feeling appropriate during the reading of the Shema, one befitting the declaration Hashem Echad, meaning you have proclaimed his monarchy over the 7 heavens, the earth, and all 4 directions of the world, and to love Hashem with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your might. A person first needs to meditate on the passages of praises and blessing preceding the Shema. Nevertheless, this order in the liturgy was established for everyone to follow, even those who are not yet on this level. So basically what this is saying is that no matter how great of a Jew you are, how much you know, or how little you know, we all have the same obligation, because at the end of the day, we're all nothings. And when we understand that, we'll be able to connect to Hashem on a completely different level. Part 8. Fake it till you make it. The reason that every Jew is obligated to actually run to any mitzvah activity, even if he does not fully appreciate its deeper significance, is because conditioning oneself to run for any mitzvah activity joyfully and enthusiastically ultimately leads to a person quickly and more easily reaching the level of true running, to experience a boundless joy and enthusiasm in the service of Hashem. This also explains the verse, let us run to know Hashem. The straightforward meaning, not that let us run as a result, an outcome of to know Hashem, but rather the opposite, let us run, leads the person to know Hashem. But actually running, let us run, ultimately leads to the self-abnegation engendered by the higher level of divine consciousness. It is now clear why the obligation to run to any mitzvah activity is stated primarily within the concept of synagogue, as discussed above in section 3. Prayer. Prayer is considered the service of the heart, and its aim is for a Jew to foster a deep attachment to Hashem, enabling him to ascend to higher levels in his overall divine service. Therefore, the avodah of let us run, which leads to know Hashem, the higher knowledge, begins with the act of running towards prayer service. It is this unique form of avodah that enables a person to attain a higher level of knowing Hashem. From and through the avodah of prayer, one will accomplish the avodah of let us run and running for all of the mitzvah's activity. So it doesn't matter how high or how low you are. We, as I said multiple times, we all have the same obligations, and even just starting to do these mitzvahs, even if you don't completely understand, you'll eventually come to understand. Part 9. Running as a commitment. This is a novel accomplishment that a person is meant to attain with the lessons of run in Tractate Avos, over and above the law mentioned previously in the Shulchan Aruch. These lessons are speaking about the deeper significance of the idea of running. The enthusiasm and boundless joy in the service of Hashem, which is great avodah, matter of piety. However, in this itself, there are two ways. A, you should run to carry out the will of your Father in heaven. This is running applies to everyone, therefore is also cited in the Torah and in the Alter Rebbes Shulchan Aruch, as mentioned earlier. And B, the lesson of Ben Azai, to run to a minor mitzvah. It is not equally relevant to everyone. The explanation, Yehuda ben Taima, is not referring primarily to the running to mitzvahs and the joy felt while performing mitzvahs. Rather, he's referring to running or enthusiasm and the overall dedication, devotion a Jew exhibits towards serving Hashem at the start of the day, even before engaging in any particular act of worship. This is akin to reciting Moed Ani immediately upon him awaking from his sleep. Thus, it represents a general acknowledgement and selfless commitment to Hashem at the beginning of the day. Moed Ani is the first blessing we say even before getting out of bed. Therefore, Yehuda ben Taima does not use expression run to a mitzvah, but rather carry out the will of your Father in heaven, which is the encompassing goal of all aspects of a person's daily avodah. This dictum was placed at the beginning of the entire Shulchan Aruch, even pursuing the practice of saying Moed Ani, because the selfless commitment to serving Hashem that Yehuda ben Taima conveys is a more comprehensive form of acknowledgement and selfless devotion, which surpasses even the acknowledgement of Moed Ani. This is all-encompassing inspirational lesson as to how to serve Hashem is germane to every Jew, regardless of his current spiritual state. As well known, a deeper reason we say Moed Ani prior to washing our hands, even while our hands are impure, is because all impurities of the world cannot defile the Moed Ani of a Jew. A Jew may be lacking in one way or another, but the Moed Ani remains intact. So, what Yehuda ben Taima means by this is that just the service of running to fulfill a mitzvah just shows how much you're committed to Hashem, and you can show your commitment and selflessness by saying Moed Ani, but Yehuda ben Taima says that the commitment that you show by physically running to do a mitzvah is greater than the Moed Ani, even though if you don't do that, like, your Moed Ani is still like one of the greatest and most selfless acts that you do, and nothing can overcome that. Part 10. Two purposes. To this, Ben Azai ends another lesson as matter of piety, run to perform a minor mitzvah and flee from sin. A person may be engrossed in performing a particular mitzvah. At that moment, he may not be thinking about the all-encompassing reason for this mitzvah, which is the same for all mitzvahs, who sanctified us his commandments, commanded us, which is like Ashir K'Nisan B'Tisav V'Tzivanu, like part of the blessings that we say, to carry out the will of your Father in heaven. Instead, he focused on the composition and benefit of that particular mitzvah, which is why he feels as though it is a minor mitzvah. Even so, it is still incumbent upon the Jew to spur himself to the performance of the mitzvah in a matter of running with a sense of unbridled joy and enthusiasm. How can Ben Azai demand of a Jew that a particular mitzvah, which seemingly is limited in measure, should stir a sense of running, surpassing all limitations and boundaries? This is because Ben Azai's mode of conduct. This is because in Ben Azai's mode of conduct, there was always an emphasis placed on running, escaping from the world. Therefore, he did not concern himself with procreation. As he said, "What am I to do? My soul thirsts for Torah." In fact, ultimately, he did escape, since when he entered into Pardes, he glimpsed the divine presence and died. He exhibited Ratzo. He literally ran from everything that was blocking his connection to Hashem. Without a shove, which without really a care, which, as it says here, like what led to the death of Aaron's two sons. What happened was that Aaron's two sons, the Kohanim, went into the Beis HaMikdash and they did offerings, karbanes, when they weren't supposed to. So, there's times that you were allowed to do the offerings, and with this, it was too much holiness for them, and their souls left their body, went back to their Creator, and with this, they died, which is the same thing that happened to Ben Azai. For this reason, Ben Azai's divine service, even in the matter of tikkun, performing mitzvahs, was also carried out with ratzo. He experienced the great pleasantness, agreeableness, sweetness, the wording of the Or Chaim HaKadosh regarding the ratzo of the two sons of Aaron, which exists in mitzvahs. This inspired him to run joyfully to fulfill mitzvahs in a boundless and limitless manner, exceeding even the limitation of his own divine soul. Now we can explain why the wording "run to perform a mitzvah," even a minor mitzvah as a major one, is inappropriate. After all, the pleasantness of mitzvahs, which stirs a person to run for a mitzvah, is engendered by the particular composition of each mitzvah. Therefore, the pleasantness of a minor mitzvah is not the same as the pleasantness of a major mitzvah. On the contrary, the novelty of his teaching is expressed in the clause "run for a minor mitzvah," meaning even a minor mitzvah holds boundless pleasantness, and therefore one should also run for such a mitzvah. So basically what it's saying is that not all mitzvahs are the same, so technically this statement is invalid, but it goes person to person, so to speak, but the fulfillment that we feel performing a big mitzvah is not the same as fulfillment that we feel for small mitzvahs. Final part 11. Running equals reward. The dearness, the pleasantness of mitzvahs can be sensed in two ways. A person senses great pleasantness in mitzvahs themselves. Closest with Hashem is good. B, he senses that his divine soul experience that closest with Hashem is good for me. This explains the two reasons that Ben Azai gave as to why one must run to do a mitzvah. A mitzvah leads to another mitzvah, and B, the reward of for a mitzvah is a mitzvah. The main reason regarding to the inherent pleasantness of a mitzvah, one mitzvah leads to another mitzvah. The great pleasantness of a mitzvah is because it leads to a mitzvah. It creates a connection and bond between a Jew and Hashem. However, Ben Azai taught this lesson also for those who have not yet reached the level of being close to Hashem. Is good. Furthermore, he taught this lesson even for a person still at the initial stage of his avodah, and who therefore only does avodah when he feels it concerns him. Therefore, Ben Azai adds reward for a mitzvah is a mitzvah. Even the reward for performing mitzvahs, something that a person may feel he has earned, is itself a mitzvah. In other words, he is connected with Hashem in a way he feels boundless pleasantness. As commonly understood, there can be no reward in this world, because the reward for mitzvahs is limitless, and this world does not have the capacity to contain this great reward. Therefore, in order to receive reward for a mitzvah, it is necessary to be in a state of running, surpassing all boundaries and limitations. And that's the conclusion of the Sikha. What does this mean? That we should fulfill all mitzvahs in this way. We subdue ourselves, and we merit to see Hashem's greatness and try to connect him even more. Thank you for listening to the Sikha. See you next week, and have a good week.